What are the most common plumbing issues in Calgary homes? That's what a great question. Most often what we see, they're going to be related to your hot water tank. People are concerned because they're not getting enough hot water, right? Or they have no hot water at all, or they've seen a leak on their floor. We get lots of phone calls, and a lot of times there's a little bit of panic that comes involved with that. And what we always assure people is there's no need to panic when you spot some water around your hot water tank, right? Absolutely, we're going to get there same day and be able to replace that hot water tank. But generally, we're not going to see any, the hot water tank's not going to explode. It's not going to come apart, right? Generally, once you've noticed there's a problem, they're actually very easy to fix and retrofit. Other very common plumbing services that happen in Calgary are going to be drain related. So these are going to be like major morning wreckers, right? So someone goes to take a shower and there is no, all of a sudden the shower just doesn't drain anymore, right? Or there's water coming up in a basement. You know, when these are caught early on, and this is where we recommend flood monitors near a floor drain, try to just mitigate some damage. They're very easy problems to repair with the right tools. And, drain backups are very common, and especially around the festive seasons with, guests and people putting things down drains that don't necessarily belong. Paper towels, feminine hygiene products down toilets, grease or fats or coffee grinds down kitchen sinks. So around the holiday seasons, we see a lot of drain backups, and those are very easy to deal with. And then probably a really big one is the peaks and valleys that in our industry around when it gets really hot outside or really, really cold. When the temperature drops below -20, we see a lot of calls for frozen pipes and in furnaces that stop working. And we really see the importance of maintenance coming in ahead of time, because for so many of these houses, when the furnace fails, there's some factors that we could have dealt with when the weather's a little bit nicer, then doesn't result in emergency calls. And then alternatively, we see in the summertime with air conditioning, when the temperature gets above 26 to 30 degrees, it's really hot inside. The indoor temperature starts climbing to the mid to low 30s, and there's a large degree of discomfort, and we see the same problem with air conditioning failures. And so it's in those regards which really get us into our maintenance plans and why we really encourage proactive maintenance as per the manuals, to make sure that when you have guests over, when the temperature is really cold or really hot, that the equipment that keeps you safe and comfortable in your house just continues to work. And another thing, when you get into the common plumbing repairs in the city of Calgary, that's going to have a lot to do with parts breaking. These are going to be your faucet, either your kitchen faucet or bathroom faucet or toilet. Components break, and then it's a lot of time having that conversation on whether or not we're repairing or we're replacing components. And so often with the cost of goods coming down and finding some really good bargains in the realm of kitchen faucets, even pullouts, toilets, and basin sink faucets, a lot of times replacing the entire faucet, getting a new warranty, seems to be the best for residential plumbing repair for a lot of our recommendations. And we really try to advise against component swapping unless the price really makes a lot of sense to replace a part as opposed to the entire component itself. How do I find the best plumber in Calgary? Having been in the industry like myself for 30 plus years with my dad, but also just seeing how many different plumbing companies there are. We like to look around. There seems to be every week there's a new plumbing company or several new plumbing vans nicely wrapped. And as a consumer, how do you know that the person that you're hiring is going to be able to provide you the service in the immediate term, but also be able to provide that backing for the long term to make sure that the work they do, they can stand behind because they've been around, because they will be around. Things that I believe anybody should be looking for is, how long has the company been around under the same brand? I think it's very important because that really speaks to their willingness to honor their existing client base by not folding, by not going under, by not changing their name and reducing their legal liability. And I think another thing that goes in there is you can't go wrong with Google reviews. And being able to look at not only the 5 stars and the 4 stars, but being able to see, does the company have 1-star reviews, and what do they say? Are they common? Do they have 2 stars? Do they have 3 stars? And being able to just discern, how does the company handle bad work? Now, any company that's been around for a long enough time is going to have made mistakes. And really what you're looking for is to see some sort of a pattern as to how do they deal when a mistake happens. Once you've made your decision and you have somebody that's coming to your home, what you're really looking for is professionalism. Does the person who's coming to your house speak well? Do you feel respected in what they're saying? There's absolutely going to be a knowledge difference between the professional plumbing contractor coming into your home and yourself. And what you're looking for is the person shouldn't be talking down to you. They should be taking the time to explain what's going on in terms that you understand and giving you the space to really think about it. Anytime you're feeling pressure from sales, or you're feeling that sense of like fear that something is going wrong in your house and something needs to get dealt with immediately, or there could be something catastrophic that happens, those are generally things that a professional plumber will not be instilling. There's very little in your house that can ever go wrong that creates an immediate need or a catastrophic failure that doesn't give you the time to be able to deal with it, think about it, and get comfortable with any purchasing decisions. Once a plumber's in your house, once you're going through the process, you should be able to look for, is the person being patient? Are they taking the time to respect what is in your home? Do they set up drop cloths in the area that they're working? Are they giving an opportunity to clean up a little bit in the areas before they get started? Is their tools kit organized? Right? Are they communicating in a way that gives you advance notice of where they're going to be going? And throughout the whole experience while somebody's in your home, you should feel comfortable. A lot of companies are going to, put their staff through training to make sure that they're putting you at ease through these difficult scenarios, because having somebody in your home is never the ideal situation. That's one thing we try to communicate with all of our staff as well, is that we're invited guests at that time. Nobody's calling a plumber because it's fun. They generally have a problem, and you want to ensure that the person that is in your home is taking the time to make sure that you're comfortable and not creating a sense of fear or anxiety, and really taking that problem and upping it. Once that person's in your home, you should feel that sense of relief as they take more and more steps, not amping your anxiety up. What should I look for in a plumbing contractor in Calgary? Well, when you're making this decision, you're online or you're going through websites trying to figure out who to call, eventually you're going to get on the phone with somebody. At that point in time, what I believe the most important thing you could look for is the person that you're talking to trying to get information from you that they think is going to be helpful. There's two types of philosophies. One of them is just get somebody out to site, regardless of the information. And for you, the consumer, that's not necessarily the best scenario. In this day and age, most consumers are able to take photos, they're able to explain things, they're able to gather a lot of information that we need as a contractor coming out. So what you're looking for really is the person that you're talking to on the phone, are they asking you to get model or serial numbers? Are they getting you to take a photo of the problem? Are they trying to get you as an engaged partner in problem solving? Now, whether you want to or you don't want to, they should at least try to ask. And then you can convey that sense of willingness to be involved. But the more willing you are to be involved in that first initial contact, the more efficiently any plumbing company is going to be able to come help you with their problem. There are so many different models of furnaces and boilers and hot water tanks and toilets and faucets and kitchen faucets and basin faucets and tub spouts. And in order for us or any company to come out there and serve you in a way that reduces the total cost of your plumbing problem, the more information we can get ahead of time, the better off it is. So other questions they might ask you is, what is the noise it's making? What do you hear? How long have you had this problem? Where's the water coming from? Do you have a photo? Can you take a photo from close up? Can you take a photo from far away? These are things that plumbing contractors and professional plumbers are really going to go out there and ask, because for these professionals, they're going to want to come out there and solve the problem as efficiently as possible. They want to be in and out of your home as quickly as possible. They don't want to be in your house for longer than they need to, and you don't want them in your house for longer than you need to. And so really looking for that engaged first contact, that they want to get information ahead of time, as opposed to just rack up your bill by getting somebody there as fast as possible. How much do plumbers charge in Calgary for common repairs? Oh man, if this is not the most anxiety-ridden question that we would ever get. I think the width and range of pricing in plumbing and HVAC and furnaces in Calgary is so wide. Now, what you're really looking for when you're looking for a contractor is, once that person's in your house, is how thorough are they being in their communication as far as what is included and not included in their pricing. So on toilet replacements, the easy part most of the time is going to be the swapping of the toilet itself, right? That's going to range somewhere in between, $200 and $400, depending on the toilet. Now, there's certain things that go into, is it a one-piece toilet, a two-piece toilet? What is the existing installation like? And once you lift the toilet up, are there existing problems? And I think that's one area of fear for so many consumers, is the unknown once you start taking stuff apart. Now, the hidden cost that might come in a toilet repair could be replacing of a toilet flange or replacing of a valve, right? Those are going to range in a cost of maybe $150 and $300, depending on what's there. And then potentially some flooring repairs, depending if their toilet has been leaking for a long time. Other, a kitchen faucet replacement probably is going to range from $150 to $250. Replacing a basin faucet is probably going to range from $125 to $200. Like one really common one that we get is, a water leak that we don't know where it's coming from. And from that regard, we're going to come to your house equipped with thermal cameras and really go through a thorough diagnosis to make sure that we find where water leaks may exist with creating the least amount of damage possible. The biggest fear and anxiety that anybody should have in calling a plumber or any contractor is when the problem itself is unknown. If a toilet's clogged, it's easy to talk about, it's generally easy to fix. It's more difficult to talk about mystery noises, mystery water leaks, an intermittent problem that comes and goes. That's going to be where we're going to go through a thorough diagnosis, and it really ends up in a upfront diagnosis cost, which generally costs maybe $200, $250 to look for not only the problem, but also the root cause of the problem, to make sure that as they propose solutions, that they are addressing the root cause and not a symptom of a larger problem. How much do people charge for common HVAC and plumbing repairs? For a furnace problem, there are so many things that can result in my furnace doesn't work. So maybe it's an older furnace and it has a thermocouple, and that replacement might only cost between $80 and $90 once people are there. There's other problems that get into, as the furnace gets newer and newer, there's more components that result in the high efficiency side with pressure switches or inducer motors or other components that allow the appliance to be high efficient. And those repairs are going to cost anywhere between $200 and thousands of dollars. And that's where seeing that video on, what to look for in a professional contractor really comes in handy. So when you're able to describe a noise and give a model and serial number for our staff in advance of us coming, we're able to more effectively give some pricing availability and part availability to what potential problems may be in the house related to like furnaces or air conditioners. The more specialized the equipment, the more expensive the equipment is upfront. Generally, the more expensive the repair is. We really advise people on our construction side to use common equipment with common parts sold by multiple vendors, because it reduces that long-term cost of ownership and that really specialized cost when a specialty component fails on a special equipment. That results in really expensive repairs generally and longer lead times, as those parts are not as readily available. This is my favorite question. How often should I schedule a plumbing tune-up? Now, when you're calling a plumbing professional, right, or for plumbing services, and we're using the term tune-up, this is where you really want to make sure that you're getting what you're paying for, and that what you're paying for is actually what you're getting. We love the term maintenance. Now, generally speaking, in your home, you have two pieces of equipment that are going to require annual maintenance: your furnace and your hot water tank. Now, in your manual, like for your furnace and your hot water tank, it's going to have your list of requirements as to what you're supposed to do as the homeowner, as the person who owns the piece of equipment, on an annual basis to take care of that appliance in the way that the manufacturer knows is going to let it last for as long as possible. This is always done annually, and generally speaking, you should be looking at getting a plumbing professional or an HVAC professional in your home September or October, or at the latest November, in advance to make sure that your furnace is maintained properly. Always be leery of people who use the word tune-up. It's a word that isn't in a manual anywhere. There's no set standard, and there's nothing that you can be held accountable to as a company when something is tuned up. You can absolutely hold your plumbing professional to a higher standard when they're using the term maintenance, because it comes out of the manual. There's a prescribed list of items that must be checked and maintained and standards that are laid out to make sure that your equipment is operating at its highest performance. Companies that may not be as professional, they may not be trying to be held to an appropriate standard. They're going to use the word tune-up because it's something that they can't be held to. You really want to be looking for a contractor who is maintaining your equipment per the manufacturer's standards. And almost every manufacturer, in order to qualify for their warranty, will use the term maintenance as prescribed in their installation and operations manual, which is why it's so important to have your plumbing contractor use that as their guideline for any service that they're performing on any of your equipment. What do I look for in a professional plumbing or HVAC company? I think one of the biggest things to look for in a plumbing or HVAC company is it too good to be true? When you see these keywords or these pricing available, right? Someone's going to come to your house for $99. They're going to tune up your furnace. They're going to tune up your air conditioner for $99, right? Or $149. What you need to know is that in the city of Calgary, your average journeyman plumber, right, who's coming to your house is going to be making somewhere between $36 and $45 per hour. It takes around 45 minutes to drive anywhere in the city between material. And so if you have someone coming out to your house for $99, they can't make any money on that call. So what they're selling you is a salesperson. That person's coming to your house. They need to find something wrong to sell you. You're really looking for someone, if they're maintaining or tuning up some of your equipment, that they're charging enough money that justifies actually just performing a maintenance, and they're not incentivized to find something wrong and sell you something that you may or may not need. $149, $99 sales pitches, you're absolutely getting a salesperson to your house. They're going to look to try to find something wrong. They're going to try to scare you into saying that something is needs to be replaced immediately. They're going to be high dollar amounts. And that's generally something that a professional company is not going to try to do to you, because they've understood that in order to maintain or tune something up, there is a cost to it. These are 1.5 to 2 hour jobs if you do it per the manual. And at $149, you can't make money at that. None of these companies who lose money on jobs can be around for the long term. So it's really making sure that the company that you're charging or that's charging you is charging enough that they can be there for the long term for you, and that they're incentivized to do the job right the first time without pressuring you into buying something that you don't need. What qualifies as an emergency? Oh, this is a good one. Because it's your house, right? And you're used to living in, 21, 22 degrees Celsius climate inside the home, water, drains work all the time and water doesn't come out where it shouldn't be. A lot of times, what's an emergency? When your furnace fails and it's minus 30 and the temperature in your home starts dropping below 14 degrees Celsius, you're in emergency territory. Remember that water freezes at 0, so you still have a little bit of time, and electric heaters can be a real benefit. But making sure that when it's minus 30 and your furnace fails, that's definitely an emergency. However, if it fails at 1 in the morning, your house is 14 degrees, nobody has to come out there right in that moment. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, that house will still be at a reasonable temperature, especially if you have some sort of temporary heating appliances like a fireplace available, just to recoup some heat. Don't worry. As the temperature in your home decreases, it loses a little bit less heat. It's not as critical to make sure that somebody gets out there first thing at that moment, and also reduces the overall cost of repair by not having to open up places on an emergency basis. Other emergencies are flooding. This is a big one, right? All of a sudden you wake up or you come to your house and there's been a catastrophic failure. Either it's a toilet or a frozen pipe or a sink has been left on. That's an emergency, and the absolute most important thing you can do is stop the flow of water. What we always recommend is know where your water main shut off is, so that in the event that the water is ever coming out where it shouldn't, you know where to run in that moment. You can turn the water off and reduce the amount of damage. What happens next once the water's stopped? The emergency's over, and then it gets into damage control and then repair. The most important thing you can do in your home, and I'll say it again, know where your water main shutoff is. And that can be one of the biggest values of having a plumbing professional in your home, is they can take the time to show you where the water valve is, how to operate it, so that you're comfortable and that in a plumbing emergency where you're having a catastrophic water leak, you're able to stop the flow of water and mitigate the damage as soon as possible. What qualifies as a plumbing emergency? Sewer backups can qualify as a plumbing emergency. Now, a lot of times what will take place is the sewer backs up, or like the sewer has a stoppage. People start using water from the second or third floor. They're unaware that the water is no longer draining into the city sewer, and it's starting to back up into the basement. The more that problem goes on, the bigger the damage. And that's where we really recommend like water sensors and flood sensors and alarms in basements. And that mitigates the damage as much as possible. That emergency really starts getting worse and worse the longer a sewer backup or a slow leak has gone on without being rectified. This is where working with components that tie into your home automation system or your alarm system or standalone like flood-related products really come in handy. And I can't recommend enough to make sure you know where your mechanical room is in your house, where's your hot water tank, where's your furnace, and just walking in there on a at least weekly basis to make sure that there isn't water where it shouldn't be. That's a great way of preventing catastrophic emergencies. What isn't an emergency, depending on your definition, is no hot water. No hot water is inconvenient. But from an emergency standpoint, you're able to mitigate some of the excessive cost increases by just recognizing that you might have a cold shower for a day or two as you wait for the plumbing professional to come in, do the diagnosis, make sure you're getting the right fit. It's absolutely inconvenient, and you'll never understand or appreciate the value of a hot shower more than when your hot water tank fails. But a lot of times, not a major plumbing emergency. If you walk by your hot water tank and you see a little bit of water on the floor or a drip from your relief valve, it's a problem, not an emergency, right? And then that's where it's like really assuage some of your concerns or fears, where there's water coming out of the relief valve, and that's that like brass piece coming out the top side of your hot water tank. It kind of goes down to the floor. Inconvenient, scary, make sure the water is going to the floor drain. And after that, a plumbing professional can come that day, maybe the next day, and make sure that there's no additional problems. But a lot of times not going to qualify as like an emergency. It'll be okay for a couple hours. What qualifies as a plumbing emergency and what do you do? You know what? One of the big ones that doesn't come up very often, but when it happens, it is important. That's the smell of natural gas, or the smell in your house that indicates that there's some sort of a gas leak in the house. That is one of the most important things to know what to do in an emergency. It's really important that you have carbon monoxide detectors in the basement, second floor where bedrooms are in your home, and that they're functional and batteries are replaced. In the event that you smell gas, you can call a plumbing professional, you can call ATCO, they'll come out, right? If you call a plumbing professional, the professional can come out, diagnose where that gas is coming from, and repair it. If you call ATCO, they're just going to come out, they're going to find out if there's a gas leak from somewhere, and they're just going to shut the appliance down. So they're not always the best call. If your carbon monoxide detector goes off, the best thing to do there, get out of the house, call a plumbing professional to make sure that they can come out there, inspect and mitigate the issue as fast as possible. We absolutely can't recommend enough the importance of carbon monoxide detectors on each floor of your house and really respecting them when they go off. Carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless gas. You can't smell it, and that's where it's very important to get out of the house when the alarm goes off, and really speaks to the value of maintenance on your equipment per the manual. It reduces the likelihood of having some sort of failure that's going to result in a cracked heat exchanger, which results in carbon monoxide entering your home. How quickly can I get same-day plumbing service in Calgary? I think most companies, when you call in, they're going to ask you questions about what's the problem, what's going on in the house, and they're going to try to qualify as soon as possible the significance of the issue. Really work with them to make sure that you answer the questions and listen to what they're saying to make sure that that same-day plumbing call is what you actually need. Sometimes what you think is an emergency in that exact moment may not be, and take the time to listen to them. And if you still want that same-day plumbing call, definitely be an advocate for yourself that even though that plumbing company might not see it as that same-day emergency, that you still want somebody out there. What's kind of normal would be waiting in that 90 to 120 minutes for that same day service in an emergency situation. And some companies may charge a little bit extra to be able to pull somebody off of an existing job in order to prioritize your call. And in many cases, that's absolutely warranted and justified to make sure that you get the right person at your house in that fast timeline. Most companies don't have somebody just sitting around waiting, but it's very important in those moments that when you communicate what your problem is, that it's very critical that you get somebody on that same day plumbing emergency and you have that same day plumbing service in Calgary coming out, is that the person coming out has the most amount of information as fast as possible, gets pulled off the existing job that they're at, and then comes prepared to solve your problem as fast as possible. And that's what you really look for that same day plumbing, to be able to solve that in the fastest amount of time possible while keeping all the costs minimal. What are the most common causes of emergency plumbing calls? Well, the emergency plumbing calls are most often around water leaks. These are going to be frozen pipes or hot water tanks that have failed, or all of a sudden plumbing water lines that have ruptured. These are the most common calls. And then getting into some sewer backups where all of a sudden no water from the house is going down the sewer. These are the type of calls that all of a sudden your house has come to a standstill. You have no running water anymore, or you have no ability to drain water. And so at that point in time, getting somebody out there as fast as possible to mitigate the existing damage and then fix the problem, those are the most common plumbing emergencies that we deal with. On the furnace and air conditioning, on that type of side, what we see as the most common emergencies are furnace failures. All of a sudden at -30, when that furnace has just been running nonstop for days at a time, something just fails. And it's a crappy experience for the homeowner and the client, because that's the busiest time of the year for every single HVAC company in the city of Calgary. And so in that moment, getting the right equipment, getting the replacement, rescheduling the labor takes a lot more resources that aren't as readily available, which is why you get back to that real important part of maintaining your equipment per the manual. So that way it mitigates or reduces the likelihood of a catastrophic failure when it's cold outside. Having your furnace fail when the temperature is below -15 or -20, right, starts to create an emergency situation, generally in 12 to 24 hours, without heat being put back into the home. And in those cases, the most important thing you can do is get temporary heat, either with electric heaters or a fireplace if you happen to have one, getting heat back into the house in order to reduce the level of the emergency when that furnace does fail. Why is my water pressure low, and how do I fix it? Well, we've all been there, right? You get in the shower, right? Or you go to your kitchen sink, or you go outside, and all of a sudden you notice that either your pressure is much lower than it usually is, or you're in a new house and it just doesn't feel like the pressure is where it should be. Well, here's what you need to know about water pressure in Calgary. The city of Calgary basically guarantees that they're going to deliver you about 45 PSI, or pounds per square inch, of water pressure to your house. Like, what is that? Well, it's not as much as you'd think. Most people are used to pressure in that 70 to 80 PSI range. And so when you see 45, it's just not that much. Now, if it's a problem with the city of Calgary delivering only 40 to 45 PSI, the city doesn't do anything about that. And that's where you really need to start looking at the booster pump. These are going to range in price somewhere between $2,500 to about $4,000. And so it really has to question how important that water pressure is to you, because we can only fix what the city gives us. And if they don't give us very much, then we have to up the pressure at your main. However, a lot of times that's not the most common issue. The most common issue is related to either flow restrictors or reduced flow appliances that are installed in your house. Now, California governs every plumbing regulation in North America, so there's been a real prevalence of reduced flow appliances that have been installed. So kitchen faucets, basin faucets, shower heads, they've all gone from maybe 2.5, 3 gallons a minute down to 1.75, 1.5 gallons, or 1.25 gallons per minute, which when you're used to 2.5 gallons a minute just isn't a lot. You can look at changing the fixture out completely, reducing, removing flow restrictors. Those are the type of things that we'll generally recommend to people when their water pressure is low. And the really neat part, if you just want more information, you can schedule a furnace maintenance or an air conditioning maintenance. And while your plumber's there, they can just check your pressure so that they give you a little bit more information so that you know whether you're dealing with a problem on your own house or if you're dealing with a problem from the city. And then you can get some information on what more to do from there. Hot water tanks. And how do you know whether or not your hot water tank needs a repair or a replacement? Now, you've got your plumber coming to look at your water tank, right? Or a plumbing service call. probably what the most important thing you can look for ahead of time is when you turn on your faucet, if you're taking a shower, how long do you have hot water for? A lot of times you should be able to take a 10 to 20 minute shower without feeling that you have ran out of hot water. One problem that you have a problem with your hot water tank is going to be that you get hot water for about a minute and then you get lukewarm water for the rest of the shower. Not cold water, but lukewarm water. Now, that's going to indicate that maybe a plumbing repair is necessary on the cold water side of your hot water tank. Now, depending on the age of your hot water tank, that might justify a repair. What we really recommend, and what I would recommend to everybody, is once your hot water tank is outside of its warranty, and that's going to be somewhere between 7 to 10 years from the date of manufacture, most of the time a hot water tank may not be worth repairing. Repairing appliances in general that are outside of warranty may not be the best practice, and everybody's financial needs and constraints are different. A hot water repair is going to run you somewhere between $250 and $500, and replacing a hot water tank is going to cost somewhere between $1,500 and $2,500. And so you start investing 25% of a replacement cost at times, or 15% of a replacement cost in a repair, knowing that there's still other components on the hot water tank that may fail, and labor tends to be the most expensive part under warranty. But after warranty, you're paying for a component and you're paying for labor, and that's where we really start to look at replacement. Other areas that you might notice from a repair standpoint is water that drips out of the side of the hot water tank from what's called the pressure relief valve. Now, that's a component that might be easy to repair, easy to replace. You might even be able to do that on your own if you're confident. And that might be one that's just easier to repair than replace. Anytime you're seeing water leaking from anywhere else in your hot water tank, that's generally going to be a replacement, right? They tend to leak from the top or some of the welds, or they leak from the bottom. At that point in time, those leaks are almost impossible to diagnose or fix. That's going to be a replacement. If you have a newer hot water tank that has a blower motor, like a black plastic cap on the top and 2 plastic pipes coming off of it, if you have a newer hot water tank like that, they have a lot more components on there that are a lot more expensive to replace. Some of those replacement components can land between $750 and $1,500 in order to repair. And once those hot water tanks are out of warranty, those are no longer covered by warranty, so you're paying for the component and you're paying for the labor. A replacement cost of that hot water tank is going to be somewhere between $2,500 and $3,500, and the component replacements are going to be somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000. So on the newer the hot water tank and the more recently it is out of warranty, the more we're probably going to recommend a replacement to get that hot water tank back under warranty and to give you some certainty that the other components aren't going to continue to fail. How do I prevent plumbing issues in my home, and how do I prevent furnace issues in my home? There's so many things that as a homeowner that you're able to do it yourself that's not going to require like a residential service plumber or a plumbing tune-up or plumbing and repair. Like really simple ones are just walking in your mechanical room on a regular basis. Just looking at the furnace, looking at the hot water tank, just seeing if there's a problem. Simple things like being able to just making sure that you turn your water off when you go on vacation. A real simple one. It's really beneficial for your insurance company to know that from their end that your water's off when you're gone. So that way, if there is a water leak while you're away, it reduces the amount of damage. Being able to, get some monitoring systems in your house as far as leaks go, that's a really good way to prevent significant plumbing issues from happening in your home. Other stuff that you're able to do that's going to prevent significant plumbing issues are getting a water softener. We live in Calgary and our water is really hard. So by getting a water softener, that's going to extend the life of a lot of appliances like your washing machine, like your dishwasher, like your hot water tank. And although they're going to be a little bit expensive up front, somewhere between that $1,500 mark to $2,500 mark, they're going to reduce the wear and tear on some of your appliances that use water on a regular basis. And arguably over a period of time should be more comfortable in your house, but also increase the life expectancy of each one of those appliances. Other things that you're able to do to prevent significant water issues around your house are going to be the, walk around. Make sure your hose bib is disconnected, or like that, the hose that you have outside of your house, that it's disconnected from the faucet for wintertime to reduce the chance of freezing pipes. And then you can never go wrong with scheduled maintenance. Your furnace and your hot water tank both require annual maintenance. Some of the maintenance you can do yourself, and some of the maintenance requires a professional. But in order to reduce the likelihood of having an emergency plumbing repair in your home, the best thing you can do is annual maintenance on those appliances, because that's what the manufacturer says in their manual. All right, homeowners, what is the best way to unclog a drain without damaging the pipes? You know what? More and more we're seeing sewers and drains that need to be unclogged. As we reduce the amount of water that goes down with each flush of a toilet or with each sink, that's less water to carry solids to where the city takes over. Some of the best way to do it is to use some of the equipment that professional plumbing companies use. If you want to be a little bit handy, being able to own a toilet snake, which is has the orange handles and a large spring on it. They're very easy to use. They're not super expensive to buy. And if you're finding that your toilets are getting plugged, you really have two options. Change the toilet to a toilet that has a higher rating for flushing and less clogs. And the other option is get used to being able to operate a plunger or a sewer snake. Those ones are very easy to use and not that expensive to buy. And we would definitely recommend being able to own that. The other one, if you're a little bit half-handy, is going to Home Depot and being able to buy tiny drain augers. A lot of times for sink backups, the obstruction happens within, a few feet, 3 to 5 feet of the sink itself. So the best way to be able to do that without damaging anything is to be able to disconnect the P-trap at the bottom of your sink, stick the snake in, and then you use a hand auger. If it's an easy to repair and easy to unclog, you're going to be able to do that with equipment that you can purchase from Home Depot. And if that doesn't do it, then your best bet is just to call a professional plumbing company who specializes in drain clogs, right? Who's bringing the right equipment to be able to unclog those drains in the most efficient way possible. If you have a main sewer backup, right, where water's no longer draining from your house into the city, your best bet there is to call a plumbing professional. The majority of the equipment that Home Depot will sell will not be able to handle sewer obstructions in 3 or 4 inch pipe. So at that point, you're just calling the plumbing professional, and they're going to come out there, and generally that cost is going to be between $350 and $650. And then the best thing you can do after they're done is pay for a camera inspection to make sure that whatever is causing the backup isn't something that's fixable. Sometimes it's because people put fats, oils, or grease down the drain. Sometimes it's because people put paper towels or tampons or other products down the drain. That's within your control, and you can make sure that doesn't happen. However, if there's obstructions in the pipe, if there's bellies in the pipe where there's standing water, right, or if there's roots growing into the pipe, that's fixable, but it's indicative of a larger problem, and that's where you need a professional plumber to come out there and do it and assess the scenario and to give you options. What plumbing services do commercial properties need most? Oh, it's a really good one. The needs of commercial properties are a little bit different from residential properties. One of the biggest things we see in a commercial property is the level of care and attention by the users of commercial plumbing systems just tends not to be as high. So what we see a lot of is people pouring things and putting things down drains that really don't belong. The city of Calgary has a great video of what does and doesn't belong down a drain, and you're going to be able to see that link below. The best thing commercial property owners can do and management companies is ongoing drain maintenance, jetting water pipes, and making sure that they're being proactive in cleaning their drains and doing inspections. The best thing that we're able to provide is confidence in that the drainage system is that when water goes down that drain, that it doesn't come up in any other part of the building and create ongoing damage. Other things that happen in a commercial property that are a little bit different is the life safety devices, like the backflow preventers on their water line, making sure that the water supply is safe. All of those require annual maintenance, and so you're going to have someone come in there on an annual basis and check the backflow or the cross-control connection device. For you commercial property owners out there, you get the notice from the city. They tell you that the plumbing company's got to come out, test the device, and send that information back to the city. And that's how the City of Calgary ensures that our water supply is safe for everybody in the City of Calgary to consume and make sure that water is potable. Other really important things that commercial properties need is really sticking to the scheduled maintenance of their equipment, whether it be furnaces that are heating the building or air handlers on the rooftop unit, making sure that a professional is going in there on a quarterly or every 6-month basis replacing filters. For people's homes, quite often they're replacing their own filters, and you don't need a professional to come out and do that. But for commercial properties especially, there just really isn't that person who's in charge of taking care of the equipment. It's very important that equipment gets maintained per the manual, especially because it's on so often between heating and air conditioning and air movement and air filtration to provide a safe and healthy environment for the guests and the employees of each of those commercial buildings. What's different from commercial plumbing and HVAC needs and residential HVAC needs? Well, one big difference between people who specialize in commercial buildings versus residential, and especially the professional plumbing and heating professionals that are in the industry, is the heating and cooling appliances tend to be a lot bigger. They're also located in areas that are a little bit more difficult to access because they're in ceilings or they're on roofs. And that's a big difference. The person coming to your house or coming to your commercial building, they're going to bring different tools. They're going to set up differently, right? They're going to need a little bit more space in the commercial side. They're going to need a little bit more information as far as the blueprints go if they're not familiar with the job in order to know where these heating and cooling appliances are. And there's a lot more of a difference in the variety of type of heating and cooling equipment inside of a commercial building, be it boilers and different types of boilers, air handlers, furnaces, air conditioners, chiller units. The people who come on that commercial side, they're going to be a little bit better or quite a bit better trained and have a more extensive experience, as inside of those commercial sites, their knowledge is a lot more tested on a regular basis. Residential houses tend to be a lot more simple. We're going to have a conventional furnace, that was built in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, or 90s. A furnace built in the 90s to 2000s, or a furnace that's built in, the late 2000s, or like in the last 20 years, where it's all high efficiency appliances. There's a little bit more specific, a little bit better stock because there's less variety of heating appliances. And that's probably the biggest difference between commercial and residential equipment. If you run a commercial business in Calgary and you have a commercial office space or a commercial building, the most important thing you can do is be on a preventative maintenance plan. There are so many pieces of equipment inside your building that require scheduled maintenance. Working with a professional who has experience in maintaining equipment is the absolute best thing you can do to protect your building, to protect the equipment inside the building, and reduce unforeseen large costs when it comes to replacement. It's really easy to ignore rooftop units and boilers because they're out of sight, out of mind. And that's why engaging a professional company on an ongoing basis who is doing proactive maintenance and, letting you know that maintenance needs to get done is the best way to make sure that your plumbing and furnace and HVAC system is maintained per the manual for the best long-term life expectancy of your equipment and the satisfaction of your tenants and staff. What are the most common problems in AIRDRIE houses? Well, the most common plumbing problems in an AIRDRIE house are going to be basically related to the furnace failing at cold temperatures, sewer backups, and water leaks. Water leaks, especially around the hot water tank, we see those all the time. And the most important thing you can know is that take a breath. Water tanks leak from time to time. Snap a photo from close up, far away, get the model and serial number, and then give us a call. It's not a catastrophic emergency in most cases, and being able to be a little bit proactive and be able to help the plumbing company understand what the installation is going to look like provides the absolute fastest way possible to make sure you get back up and running with a hot water tank that's not leaking anymore. Other common problems in AIRDRIE that we see are toilets that leak or toilets that don't drain anymore with sewer backups, or kitchen sinks that don't drain properly. And that's going to be for a common problem of things that go down the drain that probably shouldn't. Those are fats, oils, and greases, and really anything other than water that goes down the drain. And simple drain augering and drain jetting can take care of a lot of these issues and prevent them from coming back on a quick basis. What are the most common problems in a Cochrane home? Well, the most important thing is for a Cochrane plumbing company and for the Cochrane homeowners to understand that the furnace and the hot water tank are probably going to provide you the most amount of issues. Furnaces tend to fail when it's minus 30 outside and it's really cold out, and that's when you have a plumbing emergency in that regard. And then the other things that we see are, sinks that back up. A lot of time it's the kitchen sink because people put fats, oils, and greases down and other things that just don't belong down the drain. You can use some homeowner equipment that you can either buy at Home Depot or have access to at your house in order to try to unclog a drain. But a lot of times in Cochrane, you're going to be calling a company. They're going to be coming out, cleaning the drain, jetting the drain, making sure that drain's going to last a lot longer and prevent that plumbing issue from coming back. We do see a little bit of, especially in the older houses in Cochrane, where the main sewer backs up. And at that point in time, it's always best to have a professional plumbing company come out, auger the drain, and then do a camera inspection to make sure that we're identifying whether there's a drain problem, whether it's a belly in the pipe, standing water, roots that are coming in, or pipes that have become disassembled. That's what we'll see a lot for a Cochrane residential plumbing company to be able to come out and make sure that your sewer and drain and all your systems are running most effectively after we leave. How do plumbing services vary across different areas in Calgary? Well, the best way to think of the city of Calgary is inner city, the Beltline area, and the outside, kind of more bedroom style communities in the outsides of the city. When we get into the inner city, right, and especially like northeast Calgary, southeast, southwest, all those houses kind of tend to be the same when they're in that like 5 or 6 kilometer radius around the city. A lot of these houses have been built in the, 1920s to 1950s. They're going to have older plumbing drains, especially leaving the building. And what's really common is sewer backups in those areas. Those are going to be tending to have to rely on replacing the sewer completely or doing sewer replacements or liners in their sewer. That's an inner city problem. Now, when you get out a little bit more to houses that were built in the a little bit outside, like that outer belt line further than then, houses that were built in the the late 80s to mid 2000, like to 90s, what we see there is poly B. So houses that were built before then all had copper water lines. Not a big deal. Those tend to last for a long time. Now, when you get into the poly B era, that kind of ranges from the late 70s build to the mid 90s. A lot of those houses, that's the gray pipe. So whether you're in the northwest Calgary, southeast Calgary, southwest Calgary, or southwest Calgary, a lot of those houses in that 90s build area have poly B water lines. Now, the best thing to do is try to coordinate a poly B replacement with a renovation. And if you're really concerned, a proactive replacement, engaging with the drywall and painting repairs that come along and try to mitigate the damage as best as possible. The most common issue that we'll see in those era of houses is poly B replacements. They tend not to have problems with their drainage yet or their main sewers. They tend to have more problems just with the existing water lines. And then really, like every 10 to 15 years, doesn't matter where you are in the city, starting to look at problems with your hot water tank. Those hot water tanks fail in that like 7 to 10 year mark. Anything after 10 years is a gift, and just budget that, $1,500 to $3,000 or $4,000, depending on what type of hot water tank you have for a replacement. When you get to the other communities, so houses that were built in the 2000s, right, or 2010s, those houses, we see a lot more failures in the furnace that they have. They have way more components, which is what makes them high efficient and what saves money on utility bills. But there's a lot more failure of components because they have more components to fail. And this goes to the hot water tanks as well. The older style hot water tanks and furnaces don't have very many components to fail, and they don't. The newer components do. So if you're in a newer house, really understanding the age of your equipment, and once your hot water tank and furnace is out of warranty, really starting to budget for that replacement cost. Repairing a newer model furnace tends to be a little bit cost prohibitive because the total value of the expense of repair tends to be 25 to 50% of the cost of replacement. Plumbing repairs and maintenance. What is the difference between a plumbing repair, a plumbing tune-up, and plumbing maintenance? Well, plumbing repair is really specific to a component. That's generally going to be followed up by some sort of a diagnostic. So, someone comes to your house because you have a problem with not enough hot water or no hot water at all or no heat or not enough heat, that's going to land in the diagnosis range. Someone's going to say, hey, listen, you got no heat. There's many different reasons why you may not have heat or you may not have hot water. Let me look at all of the components to make sure that we identify which one is causing you the problem and give you a price on how to repair it. The repair always takes place after a thorough diagnosis because there's many times within a diagnostic that we can identify the symptom of a problem and replace it, but it isn't the problem itself. So when you're dealing with a professional plumbing company, you want to make sure that they're being thorough in their diagnosis and they're not replacing components that are symptoms rather than the problem. Tune-ups are a fun word. There's so many companies in the city of Calgary, COCHRANE and AIRDRIE, and all these companies are using plumbing and HVAC tune-up, a furnace tune-up, a hot water tank tune-up, an air conditioning tune-up. And these are words that don't really have a legal definition. They don't have you can't find these words in a manual. Nobody really knows what they are. So when someone's promising some sort of a tune-up, that's something that company individually has come up with on their own that they think is important in order to look at. And it's a real big difference between a maintenance. The best way to contrast maintenance and tune-up is maintenance is a word that generally is found inside the warranty legal jargon inside of your manual. The warranty jargon will tell you that in order to receive a warranty on components of all of your appliances, be it the furnace, the hot water tank, the air conditioner, a boiler, is that it must be maintained per the manual. The manual will give a list of prescribed maintenance that must be done on an annual or biannual or 5-year mark that must be done and with records. The biggest thing you want to look for is companies that are maintaining your equipment, not tuning it up. Tune-ups are individual to the company and maintenances are done per the instruction manual of the manufacturer, making sure that your equipment is under warranty. You really want to look out for words like plumbing tune-up, plumbing repair, plumbing service. Those are individual based. Really hold your plumbing and HVAC contractor accountable to maintenance. Have them show you inside the manual what they did and then checking that off so that you can be assured that your equipment, should it ever fail, will have no problem meeting the manufacturer's warranty and making sure that you're entitled to having those components replaced at the manufacturer's cost and not your own. How do I tell if I have a hidden water leak in my home? This is one of the scariest, most anxiety-ridden questions we get, and it's one of the most difficult problems that we struggle with in our company trying to empathize with homeowners. Water leaks are scary, and quite often you walk into your basement and there's a as you walk on the floor, right? And all of a sudden water comes in, or you look up at your ceiling and there's a ring on the ceiling that wasn't there before. It's scary because water leaks are tough to find when you don't know where they're coming from. What you really look for next is a company who's going to come out there with the right equipment. It's not always best to cut a hole just where the water's coming from, because just because the water is coming through somewhere or shows up somewhere doesn't mean that's where the original source of the water leak is coming from. You're really looking for a repair plumber or a professional plumber coming out who is going to take the time to do a thorough diagnosis of understanding where your plumbing is in the house, really eliminating and troubleshooting whether it's a drain or a water line, diagnosing whether it's a silicone problem around showers. There are so many different locations that water can leak in a house, and the most important thing you can look for is someone who's going to come through and do a thorough diagnosis and not just come through and start cutting a bunch of holes. That's a big difference between hiring a professional company who knows what they're doing and hiring someone who doesn't, is that intensity just to come in and start cutting. That's especially if you don't know where the water's coming from. The most important thing anybody can do is start a thorough diagnosis to reduce the total impact of the repair. The other really important thing from once you discover a hidden water leak is being able to mitigate the damage as soon as possible. Standing water and consistent water leaks over a sustained period of time have a tendency of creating mold. And this is where being able to cut out where the water has gone, dry it out as fast as possible, being able to identify where there may or may not be mold coming from, and then being able to engage a proper mediation, like disaster remediation company, can come in handy. There is a difference between a plumbing company and a disaster remediation company or dealing with mold, and being able to make sure that hidden water leak has not created damage. The most important thing to know about mold is that it needs a warm, moist, dark environment to thrive in. So if you think that you may have a water leak and you're just not sure, that's one of those areas where you want to get a professional in your home as fast as possible with the right equipment to be able to identify the cause and the source of the water leak before any of that damage gets sustained over a long period of time.